I had chronic insomnia for 20 years. I tried every single thing on the face of the earth to sleep, every medicine, every medication, nothing worked. Nothing. I discover a mushroom growing in the forest, and 2 weeks later, I never have insomnia ever again. So they have a very symmetrical shape. From so many years of being a mushroom forager, I've seen every type of mammal eat amanitas. Amanita works on like long term. So it's working much more on things that are deep subconscious. When you take amanita, it's going to make you centered and peaceful as a microdose. Psilocybin works on the conscious mind, whereas amanita works on the subconscious mind. Psilocybin will bring things up to the conscious mind for you to think about, whereas amanita will just fix it.
Hello, and a warm welcome to the Journey Journals. My name is Gaia from Life of Gaia, and today we have an absolutely captivating episode which is entitled How Amanita Muscaria Transforms Lives. And we're going to be looking at insights from a foraging expert. Now, my guest today is Rael. He is a professional Amanita forager and ceremony guide. And Rael is going to take us through an absolutely amazing journey to, first of all, understand the basics of Amanita muscaria, which is that iconic red and white mushroom that many of us know from fairy tales and folklore. We're also going to take a look at Rael's personal journey and how he incorporates Amanita and psilocybin mushrooms into ceremonial practices. We're also going to talk about microdosing Amanita muscaria, as well as what the legal landscape looks like and the unique role, both in personal transformation as well as the connection to the natural world. Rael, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are absolutely welcome. It's a pleasure. So, Rael, I'd love to get started off by just explaining to our audience a little bit about your background and your life experiences and what led you to become a professional Amanita forager, which is really quite unique.
Yeah, it's quite a story. Basically, it was destiny. There's no way my life could have turned out some other way. I had a very challenging childhood, entered my 20s with a lot of trauma, and I had chronic insomnia for 20 years. I couldn't sleep chronically, and for anyone who knows what that's like, it's brutal and horrible and very hard to live with. I struggled mostly through my life with finding a reason to live more than after a while. It wasn't really about the sleep anymore. It was just about a reason to live. And when I discovered spirituality, I had been atheist most of my life. I was living in Brazil and then luckily took ayahuasca one day, and that kind of changed everything for me. And I discovered God and I discovered spirituality. And since then, I was just a different person. Some years later, I still had the insomnia, but I had a new purpose. And I was wandering around the mountains in Brazil, near where I used to live. I was wandering through this forest and just found these red mushrooms everywhere. Didn't quite know how to use it, but I sort of knew what it was. I'd heard of it before. Took my sweater off, tied it into knots, and started collecting the mushrooms, learned how to prepare it. And 2 weeks later, I never had insomnia ever again. So since then, I knew this was my life calling, and that for sure I was destined to work with this and to bring it to the world, or to do something significant with it, because no one had even, when I first found it, no one, it went on Reddit. There was like 2,000 users on that Reddit forum. There was like no one, no, there was no websites about it. There's no information really. You had to really dig to find any information on this thing. And so I was like, wow, nobody knows about this, but it's this miracle healer. Like, why is this? And also, it's also in Mario Brothers, and it's the Christmas, it's all related to Christmas, and it's a WhatsApp emoji. Like, how did all this happen? It's got some very magical, mysterious powers to it. And for whatever reason, I was called to work with it and bring it to people to heal them with it.
Rael, for those watching for the very first time, could you take a moment to explain exactly what Amanita muscaria is?
So Amanita muscaria is a mushroom that comes from a mycelia. Mycelium is an organism that lives underneath the ground and can grow for miles and miles deep into the ground. We know scientifically that mycelium is immortal, and this is very significant because it's one of the only organisms on Earth that is immortal. And this isn't really paid attention to by anyone, which I think is strange, because this is mycelium. Okay, so that means that everything in the forest, it's connected to it. It connects to every plant in the forest, and transfers resources and information. They literally can transfer like molecules of resources to plant between plants. And it's been doing this since the beginning of life on the earth, which means that mycelia is definitely the most intelligent organism on the planet. There's no arguing it. It's much more intelligent than AI. And because it has seen every single living thing that has ever existed, live out its life, and then some species coming to existence and going extinct, and catastrophes happening, and glaciers forming across the earth and then receding again. So this thing is hundreds of millions of years old. It's seen everything. It's the brain of the earth. If you really want to have a deeper spiritual connection, if you want to know like a real spiritual connection, because a lot of people are pursuing spiritual connections that are kind of disconnected from their life. But if you want one that's really real, that you feel on a daily basis, microdosing Amanita is a really good way to get in touch with those intuitions, so that you can feel and listen to the things around you in a different way that allows you to be more connected to them.
Could you describe what the actual mushroom looks like, and what some of the effects might be, just to help people get an understanding of
Yeah.
exactly what we're talking about?
If you give me 2 seconds, I can grab one for you. 1 second, let me grab one. So they have a very symmetrical shape. A little bit torn there. Very pretty. When they're out in nature, they're more beautiful, actually. It's kind of hard to put into words what it feels like to find them out in nature. I'd say if you really want to get the experience of knowing Amanita, you should go try foraging. But yeah, they are quite beautiful and pleasant to look at. And I'll mention as well that, it's interesting that they are so good to look at because animals eat them. From so many years of being a mushroom forager, I've seen every type of mammal eat amanitas. Squirrels, foxes, all deer will eat them as fast as they see them. Bears, rabbits, even. I saw squirrels. I saw a squirrel one time carry an amanita up into a tree, and he left it there for 2 days, and then after the 2 days, he started eating it. He was like drying it out. So they even know. The reason it's relevant, the colors and everything, is that animals understand that they can eat this and they won't die, but they don't eat the poisonous ones that will kill them. So, like what I'm foraging, I see this. The really deadly ones they don't touch, but these ones they'll gobble up.
Must be such an amazing adventure to go foraging for them. Do you take other people on foraging trips, or is it something you do by yourself?
I only take people with me foraging if they're going to film me, so to get some footage of it. But I don't take people regularly because I don't want to share my foraging spots, but also because I don't have really a platform to teach foraging. If there was an online platform that people were interested in, I would be willing to teach foraging to the masses of people, to online or something, but probably not in person.
This is a very unique profession that you have. I've certainly never heard of anyone being a professional Amanita Muscaria forager. I wanted to ask, what challenges did you face when you first transitioned into this unique profession, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's really the big question right there that kind of takes us into the whole conversation, which is what is life about? And that's really a question. It's like, what is life about for you? And that kind of is what makes your life, is what I figured out. And so when I first stepped into this life, I had never expected that it was going to be easy. All I expected was that I would learn and that I would either pass or fail. And essentially, what this was is that in Brazil, I had spent many years, hundreds of ayahuasca trips and psilocybin and dietas, and that's how I got this manta right here. And some of these clothes are from Shipibos. All of this was training, and then I did all of the ceremonies that someone could ever do, and I learned all the spiritual knowledge that was possible. But then it was like, okay, well, what are you going to do with this? I didn't really have an answer to that until after a long time of taking Amanita. During a ceremony, Amanita approached me and said, "You have to go back to the US to bring Amanita to the world." And at first, I rejected it. It was very hard for me to get the life that I had in Brazil. I had to work very hard just to have that and to live in a very nice place and beautiful island there. But I knew that, like, if I was actually serious about what I believed in, if I was actually real about my faith, then yeah, I would have to go do that. Within a matter of weeks, I just changed everything around, dropped my entire life in South America where I had lived for 10 years, and I was never planning on leaving. I had never intended to leave South America. I love Brazil. It's still my home to me. But I had this calling, and I knew that I had to prove that faith was real. So to understand what I'm talking about, this is going to take a bit of an explanation. So let me. So when I started taking psychedelics, I came to understand that everything is a part of your experience. I came to learn what the definition of real is. So real just means that you perceive it. If you perceive it, it is real. The context by which it is real, like how it interacts with you, that's got a lot of rules that are specific to each situation. But if it comes into your conscious attention, it just automatically exists. Yes, that it is real. So with this new definition of life, I came to restructure everything I had previously understood to fit under the truth, which is this reality I had just explained. And I came to see that in order for humans to evolve, we must have faith. And what I mean by faith, I'm just referring to something in general. Okay, faith in a higher power. You have to believe that there is something that is greater than you that is ordering and organizing life itself. So you can call that God, you can call it universe, you can call it life, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Okay. But the way I see it is like if you call the ocean by a different name, it's still an ocean. It doesn't matter the name you're using as long as you're referring to a system of order that you believe in and know is functioning. Because if you don't believe that that's real, if you don't believe that there is something that's greater than you, that's ordering and managing the whole universe, then you're going to be scared, aren't you? Because then you're going to be like, oh, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I can't control it? What if I can't do it? What if I, and then you're scared all the time. So fear is the opposite of faith. It's a simple belief. Like you're either going to choose to believe that there is a God or not. And if you don't believe it, then you have fear. And if you believe it, then you don't have fear. You have peace because you know that everything is ordered. In order for me to live this, the philosophy I just told you, I had to become a professional mushroom forager and live a life that was so dangerous and so difficult to succeed at that the only possible way I would succeed was through faith and no other means. That's the story.
That's a profound belief system. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, speaking about becoming a professional Amanita forager and the difficulties and the challenges that you just touched on, can you tell us a little bit about what that's like on a day-to-day basis? I mean, what is it like foraging for these mushrooms professionally?
It's very hard. I would not recommend it to anyone. It's a very tough life. You won't make any money, and it's a lot of physical labor. I'll go through the gist of it. To start off with, I had to find the mushrooms, right? That's hard enough to do because even within a region where you know they're abundant, you still have to find the specific forest at the right time of year, specifically the right time for that forest to know when the mushrooms are going to be there. So this takes like a few years usually to actually get good at it. I mean, or you have some sort of other ability that can find them. That was what I developed. So I developed a method of finding the mushrooms through faith, which is just by trusting intuition. Okay, that's what I'm saying when I refer to the word faith. Trusting intuition and figuring out how to trust my intuition. I learned how to find the mushrooms and then make money out of it and survive. It's more than just finding the mushrooms because when I moved back to the U.S., I had no money and didn't know anybody here. I don't have a family, so I got a truck and was living in a truck for the last 2.5 years as a professional mushroom forager. And the way that works is I would travel around the country and wherever they're growing, I would go there. I'd have to carry my equipment with me. So equipment for dehydration, like a generator and the whole dehydration setup, as well as my own living needs, right? Like my clothes and my cooking needs and everything else that I have. And so my entire life was inside of an F-150 for the last 2.5 years. And I would go to a campsite somewhere in a forest and set up camp. I'd set up a camp in like really remote place where no one would ever go, so they would never find it. And I'll tell you, the first year of being a forager, I ran into a lot of people in these places. And let me tell you, not good people. You don't want to run into drunk people who have guns out in the forest. Just so you know, it's bad business.
Rael, did you ever run into other
So,
foragers or are you familiar with other foragers?
yeah, a few times, but usually foragers don't really like hang out with each other because we're kind of sort of in competition with each other as well. And so it kind of leads to tensions that kind of are hard to deal with. I would say that in terms of finding the mushrooms, it's a pretty hard life because you have to like commit so much, and there's no guarantee. And like if I don't find the mushrooms, I don't make money. That means I don't get to have a business. So it's really serious. You know, I have this limited window of 3 months or 4 months for a region to forage as much as I can, like a marathon, foraging all day long. And the way it would work is I would get up 9 a.m. I'm out there in the woods foraging. I forage until the afternoon, like around 4 p.m. I have to bring all the mushrooms back to my campsite, clean each one individually by hand, and then set them for dehydration in the dehydrator, which is a mobile, by the way. I built my own dehydrator, which I carry mobile. I also have to wake up at 3 in the morning to put gas in the dehydrator again because it runs out. So I'd have to wake up in the middle of the night as well while I'm exhausted from all this work to be able to do that. And then get up the next day at 9 a.m. and just do the same thing. And you just keep repeat every day for months. So this is really like a marathon. It's almost like a Tour de France or some sort of activity. It's this really months long, grueling work, which is mentally, physically, and emotionally straining. If I make the wrong decision, in the forest, I could be seriously in danger, right? If I lose my phone, I can't come back. I don't know how to get back. If I'm attacked by an animal, there's no one who's going to know I'm there. There's no signal. Any number of things could happen. But by repeatedly trusting in faith, by just being so stubborn about it, like I know this is my path, I know this is why I'm here, I'm doing the right things for myself and for humanity, this is unarguable. I don't care how uncomfortable or painful this is. I'm going to get through this because I'm doing the right things and this is what I need to do. And just being so stubborn about this is what I'm saying is faith, being so stubborn about it that I actually succeeded.
What I'm getting from you is a massive amount of dedication and commitment and conviction.
I don't see it that way though. I just see it as a state of being. So if you're a faithful person, you can just incorporate that as to your state of being. So it's just the way you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just becomes your normal. And then it's not like, oh, I'm not like suffering to do this. I'm not like working at it. No, no, no. This is just the way that things are. Things are ordered. God orders them. I'm just walking through the creator's kingdom and doing what I can do, what I'm supposed to do. When you live this way, you can make everything meaningful. Everything becomes a potential source of happiness. Anything that happens to you, life becomes a different thing. It's like a video game almost. It was in certain points of my life, it was like a video game. Right, I'm running through the forest,
Mario
collecting red,
Brothers.
orange, and yellow mushrooms. Yeah, to make money. Like it's like this is so RPG. Like it's very funny how close that is to a video game. But it's what you make real. It's what you believe in. And so if you believe that that can be your life and that you allow that to happen in the right way, then yes, and that's the kind of experience a person can have. But you have to really have something that matters to you, that matters enough that you're willing to go through all of that pain, and that comes from a spiritual belief. So if people don't have spirituality, they cannot evolve. That's my ultimate theorem and statement.
That's an amazing perspective and outlook to life for sure. I wanted to ask you, this all sounds terribly, I know you don't see it as a challenge and difficult, but I imagine a lot of people would. I mean, and I know we're going to cover this in the other interview around Amanita, but can this not be grown in some other way aside and not have to forage it?
It is not possible to grow it. No mycologist anywhere on the earth, anywhere, has been able to grow Amanita muscaria in a laboratory. It has never occurred. I've seen like comments on Instagram about it, but no, it's not okay. The best you can do is take a baby that's already been growing a little bit in the forest, and then you can replant it. But that's not the same as cultivating it. So the only way to find this mushroom is to find it growing naturally in the forest. That's the only way to get it. It has to grow out of the root of a tree. There are certain coniferous trees that it grows the root out of. It's called the mycorrhizal connection, and that's the only way that it can grow. It takes about 10 years to get a lot of amanitas after germinating a tree with tree root.
Hmm, interesting. And that brings us to what we touched on, or what you touched on earlier about the mycelial network and mycelium in general, which is a topic I find absolutely fascinating, and in particular the sort of interspecies communication that happens underground through the mycelial network. I wanted you to speak a little bit more into that.
So, mycelium, as I've stated, is the most intelligent organism on the earth by a gigantic margin. And I don't think this is really an arguable question either, because if it's immortal, it's seen everything that's ever happened, right? So every organism that lived and died became the mycelium in the forest. They die, they decompose, and the mycelium takes it. So as the animals see it, that's God. That's what they become, anyways, physically. Their matter becomes that. Their spirit, maybe not. But this is an organism that is extremely powerful and wise, to the point that it can insert itself into a video game in our culture and no one knows what it's called. And it's in WhatsApp and no one knows what it is or how to use it. And I have to tell people every day, I explain to a different person on Instagram how to use Amanita Muscaria because nobody knows how to use it, but it's all over. Santa Claus. So Santa Claus is red and white. Reindeer, there's a tribe in Siberia. They're the only tribe in the world that know how to domesticate reindeer. You know how they do it? They feed them Amanita muscaria in the right way. And so they can ride the reindeer like a horse. They're the only people that can do it. um, so this is a very mysterious and deeply wise organism that clearly wants to grow nature. That's its end goal. It wants nature to grow. With that in mind, why can't nature grow during these times? We might have something to do with that. The problem that is going on right now on the earth is not an issue of global warming or climate change or something like that. The issue is the human spirit. If humans are fighting with amongst themselves, if we are not at peace, if we're creating a lot of problems, we're going to create that for the things around us too, aren't we? You have to, Amanita understands everything in terms of ecosystems, energy systems. So it will attempt to fix a system from the most macro perspective possible because that's what it has. It has seen everything, it knows everything, it's ultra sensitive. Like I'm trying to get the picture across that when you walk on the earth, you're walking on top of mycelium. When you drive your car, you're driving on top of mycelium. It's like, the NSA of nature. Really, it's connected. There's no way to deny this. If you're living in a place where there are plants in the ground, then it has a connection to you. But as you see, there is a problem because a lot of people are living in places where where there isn't any nature, and so they're disconnected from their natures. So people who are in cities and they stay stuck there for too long, they lose the essential connection with nature that makes you human, which is the part where you care about being alive and you like your life. Because when you become mechanical in your thinking, then your emotions become mechanical. And emotions becoming mechanical leads to emotional people, which we call NPCs. And these are people that can't express real human genuine feelings and emotions like most people should be able to because they've been stuck in that box, the urban hellscapes that we've created. In order to reach some of these people who want to come out of that and want to have nicer, better lives, Amanita makes things occur to provide that to them, such as people like me who are crazy enough to sacrifice their whole life to try to bring this product to the world. So what I'm saying is my opinion of Amanita is that it is massively powerful and wise and ancient. It is probably the best decider of how things should be organized. So much so that I believe that we should connect artificial intelligence to mycelium and have them communicate with each other.
Fascinating. Rael, you have a sort of very strong spirituality, which I imagine comes from a lot of the work that you've done. And I understand that you also hold ceremonies and lead ceremonies with Amanita Muscaria. How do you personally use it ceremonially, and what significance does it hold for you in your rituals?
That's pretty deep for me to answer. With other people, um, essentially what I'm doing is I'm just seeing what their energetic profile basically is and what their blockages are, and then figuring out a way to try to help them see how to remove their own blockage. It's a process of them taking the medicine and then seeing for themselves through their own experience. What it does for me personally, it's a little hard to describe. It's gone on so long and evolved into something that was totally different than in the beginning. It's a very symbiotic relationship. I know to a certainty that I am the inferior. So I know that like it is superior to me and that I have to follow its instructions because it knows more and knows better. It's funny that people don't think that that's a good thing to do. Like, if you've acknowledged a higher truth or something that embodies a higher truth than yourself, well, I mean, you should follow that, shouldn't you? Like, if it's true and it's more than you have, well, you should follow it. That's kind of the relationship I have with it. It's a bit difficult at times, obviously, and I had plenty of struggles going through my life path with it, and trying to be okay with it, and not dating normally, and not having my normal diet, and not having anything to do, and being stuck in the forest all the time, and like not was not always easy. And it really came down to what am I and who am I? And if you perpetually act upon a belief, that becomes what you are. When I started this, I wasn't like this. I wasn't this serious. I wasn't this authoritative. I was a much weaker person. By actually doing it, by acting upon my beliefs, I was able to pull through and make this all happen.
I completely get what you're saying, and I feel like it's the same for me. It's almost like being in a constant state of apprenticeship to the medicine and a type of reverence and respect to it, and seeing it as a very wise source of it's even more than information, but to definitely be in a state of apprenticeship towards it.
Yeah, in ceremonies, specifically in those settings, I probably won't go into this too deeply, but I will just mention that what it teaches me is a fundamental science of how consciousness works. I think I can say that, and people will get it. So it's what I refer to as the principles of consciousness. It's essentially the science of consciousness itself and how it manifests, how it makes reality. So everything is attention. So attention is the source of existence. And depending on the way in which you have your attention concentrated, that makes your future. And so this is the science that Amanita has taught me. It's a little hard to describe, as you can tell. So I'll just leave it at that and say that that's essentially what I learned from it.
Thank you for sharing that. So, Rael, most people I would think on this channel are very familiar with psilocybin and, your regular magic mushrooms. How does psilocybin differ from Amanita?
Psilocybin is a really good introduction to psychedelics. I think that you can do a lot with it, and I did a lot with it in my early days. It seems to open up the conscious mind a lot, which is good for most people. They need to get a deeper, they need to rethink things a lot. So with psilocybin, it makes you think faster, and it energizes you and makes you more concentrated. So you can be creative, and you can solve problems and think really fast. But that's not always the best for people, because this can also be anxiety inducing. People panic a lot on psilocybin, and there's a lot of issues with it around the spiritual side of it, of contamination and people using it under corrupt energy circumstances, so not protecting those ceremonies. The best way to compare the two is psilocybin works on the conscious mind, whereas Amanita works on the subconscious mind. And when you take Amanita, it's going to make you centered and peaceful as a microdose, anyways, not as a high dose. But as a dose less than 4 grams, you'll get a peaceful, centered mind, and everything is like crystal clear. So there's no background static or noise or anything like that. Because of this, it's actually really good to combine the two, because you can balance them out that way by having a synergistic effect, which I recommend. To really get the experience of Amanita, you have to get into lucid dreaming. That's the experience that Amanita will give you. So when you do a high dose, it will force you to sleep in a way that is not comfortable, just to be clear. You will enter into a lucid dream, which then is your trip. And so your ability to remember and experience the dream becomes what you gain from that ceremony.
And so, Rael, just to be clear, that you talking about sleeping, going into a deep sleep during a ceremony, or actually like an evening of sleep
Usually it's during the ceremony.
ceremony?
So it's a fully out of body experience.
And how long does it typically last?
See, things work a little differently in dreams. And so it can be difficult to measure time. The higher end dosages I've done had very, very lengthy dreams that lasted more than many years. On the lower end of the microdosing, you'll just have like glimpses of dreams. You'll have some people will report having like all night, like they fall asleep and all night they have dreams until they wake up. And that's happened to me a few times as well. It's kind of fun actually because you kind of have these different experiences and you kind of see different things, and then you wake up and you still have a lot of energy because that's what gives you deep sleep, right? Deep sleep, but you have a deep, intense dream sleep, and then you wake up and have intense daily life too.
I would love to understand more about when you said a dream that lasts many years.
Well, I don't want to scare people who are trying to try Amanita because I'm not really comparing microdosing with what I do. What I do is like crazy people stuff. Microdosing is for regular sane people. Microdosing, you won't get these things. Things will not happen to you from microdosing. To be clear, okay. I'll go ahead and say answer this question, but I just want everyone to know from microdosing, you're only going to get small dreams that aren't going to last for centuries. Okay. But in my personal experiences where I've done very high doses, upwards of 20 grams, and including combinations of psilocybin and amanita in those dosages, I've had experiences that lasted for millennia. And I was certain that I was dead on the earth and that my life was over here. I was like, oh, I guess the trip killed me. I took too much. Okay. And then I was like, well, I'm now having this experience. I'll just do this now. And I'm off in some other reality for a long, long, long time. And all these things happen. The society changes and I see all these things. And then it eventually just ends and I wake up back here. And I'm like, how am I still alive? And this happened dozens of times, dozens and dozens and dozens. And each one of these, I was seeing a different life that I've either a future or past life. I'm not sure in some of those cases, but these are a different experience that I've had within the multiverse. So my consciousness is going and seeing another experience I had within the multiverse, comes back, and then I remember it as a dream, and it's experienced as a dream. And so then I have that memory. Yeah, I mean, some of these lasted for decades, and then I was able to push the limits harder by doing higher doses, and then it started lasting centuries, and then we got into really, really super long ones that are that I was sure I was like, there's no way the Earth is relevant anymore. I'm like, I've been here 2,000 years. So that's essentially what happened. And I would say that if you want to get into that kind of experience, you need to go at it really slowly, and you have to do diets. If anyone wants to advance spiritually, you have to start with your diet. Start with the things that you are consuming. If you don't feel that your life is connected or meaningful enough, you are probably consuming something, whether it be a food, a liquid, or some sort of content that's something that your mind is consuming that is stopping you from advancing. And if you can't eliminate the things that are disconnecting you, then you can't advance spiritually.
Let's talk a
Just to
little
make
bit
sure.
also about microdosing Amanita, which we've touched on a couple of times. How does it compare to microdosing with psilocybin, for example, in terms of benefits and effects?
So Amanita works on like long term. So it's working much more on things that are deep subconscious. Many times you will have an experience with Amanita where you don't consciously know what occurred. Like you'll have an experience, you'll do a ceremony, you'll go through the whole thing, you'll fall asleep, you'll go into your meditative state, and you maybe don't remember what happened. But when you come out of it, you feel dramatically different. And this has been reported by many people who take it because what Amanita is doing is it's resetting the subconscious mind, and it's clearing the weighted baggage of past memories. I still have my memories of when I was traumatized, but they're not like heavy anymore. They don't matter anymore. They're just memories. So, previously before Amanita, even the mention of something around the subject of the way in which I was traumatized would trigger me. But after Amanita, after years of doing it, oh, it's just like something that happened. And now I'm a different person.
And are there specific guidelines or best practices that you follow when preparing Amanita Muscaria for microdosing?
Well, I'm not going to go into my whole formula how I prepare it, but for microdosing, you probably want to take a product. It's much simpler than making it as tea. Some people try to microdose with making their own mushroom tea. it's kind of too much of trouble to do it every single day or whatever. So like you're just easier to just buy a product, and it's easier to do the dosaging as well in the preparation. Yeah. But I did want to say, as mentioned, in the difference between psilocybin and amanita, just the main difference there is that psilocybin will bring things up to the conscious mind for you to think about, whereas amanita will just fix it.
I would love to talk about the legal side of Amanita Muscaria and how that differs from psilocybin, because I believe there is quite a difference that's very interesting. And what advice you could give to someone who's navigating these regulations.
Well, amanita is 100% legal, so there's no issues in dealing with it really. The only issue you get is that banks and credit cards don't like that you sell it, and so they will not work. They won't let you process credit cards. I've had to learn how to deal with that. And my ultimate strategy is actually that everyone should just use cryptocurrency anyways, because if we all use cryptocurrency, we can move away from the fiat currency system, which is causing so many problems. So I'm not really bothered by it, and that's where I'm going with that. But yeah, legally speaking, there's no really issues with it. I've never had much of a problem anywhere I've been. I've even taken a barrel of it from Brazil to the U.S. on a plane, went through customs and was just fine.
What is it that makes the one legal and the other one's illegal?
Well, I mean, that's just human idiocy. It's just they should all be legal. And the reason they're not is because pharmaceutical companies don't want you to heal. Because if you healed, then they would lose their money and then you wouldn't be a slave. And, that would be bad for them. So they really don't want this stuff to be legal. The reason that Amanita is legal is because in the 1920s and 30s, when Lenin was in power, Stalin, they just killed everyone who practiced Amanita. And they controlled the region where most of that was known, where the culture of Amanita had developed for so long in Russia and Eastern Europe. And so they just decimated all those people, and then the culture was gone. So nobody had heard of Amanita when they banned everything in the 1970s. Now it's just available. It's stuck under the radar.
Where do you see the future of Amanita Muscaria in both ceremonial and therapeutic contexts?
I think that this is going to be the bridge between a lot of things. This is probably going to be what bridges the public to accept psychedelics as good and healthy, because Amanita is such a gentle healer at the microdose that when people start to use it, I think it's going to make a lot more people accepting of psychedelics in general, and that will probably lead to legality of other ones like ayahuasca and psilocybin and all the other ones.
And if someone wanted to start exploring Amanita muscaria for the first time, either ceremonially or microdosing it, what advice would you give them to ensure sort of a safe and meaningful experience?
I would say the first thing they need to do is be able to practice a diet. So if they cannot do a single day of fasting, don't do a ceremony with Amanita, just do microdosing. Um, if a person does not understand prayer or does not understand how to use their beliefs and emotions and energy to speak to something superior, you kind of need that to do a ceremony. If you don't have that ability, maybe just do microdosing for a while until you understand what I'm talking about. So Amanita generally will protect you. It will provide you with automatic protection that is spiritual protection. But if you mix it with other things, you can lose it. So if you mix it with anything like alcohol, you'll lose it. You mix it with anything that's an opiate, you lose it. There's a lot of ins and outs to it. And when it comes to doing ceremonies, I would generally recommend people not do them at all. I think people should just microdose. And the only people who should do ceremonies are people who want to live a shamanic lifestyle and pursue this, for life.
How has it impacted your journey?
I mean, this kind of is my whole life at this point. I don't really have anything else. So, I mean, yeah, this is it. For whatever reason, because of nature or evolution or God, it was just my destiny that this would happen. I tried every single thing on the face of the earth to sleep, every medicine, every medication, nothing worked. Nothing for 20 years. Nothing worked. Nothing that was offered to me was useful. I discover a mushroom growing in the forest, and 2 weeks later, I never have insomnia ever again. There's no way that this could be an accident. Understanding this to be true, I had a responsibility to make sure to bring this to the world and to, as best as I could, be the best person I could possibly be to represent it, so that I would be able to cure the earth of suffering.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Rael, to wrap up, what is your message to the world?
My message is that we really need to wake up and in a way that's really deeper than people have acknowledged. We don't see the obvious things around us that are harming us. And the more that you ignore things that are harming you, the more ignorant you become. You become ignorant by being ignorant, by taking ignorant actions. And you can become wise, or you can become whatever you would like to be by acting upon the things that you know are true. And you just keep acting upon the things that you know are true until it is your reality and you can escape the lies. So I guess my message to the world would be follow the truth because the truth is the light and the way, and there is no other way.
Powerful message. Thank you. Rael, and I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and thank you for this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure for me. I've learned so much, and so I want to thank you for sharing your information and for sharing yourself so openly in your own journey. I'm always in huge appreciation of all the outliers in this world. I feel like in a sense I am one myself. And I feel that, they are the people who push the boundaries and who question the status quo. Thank you for doing that. And most importantly, thank you for being, a powerful stand in the world for people waking up.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. I never knew if I was going to make it. It was a hard, long fight, and lots of stuff came in the way. And all I really want is for there to be peace on Earth. I want people to be happy. I want for the Earth to be taken care of. I want for things to be nice and pleasant here, not like they are right now. And if this is what I have to do to help that happen, I'm happy to do it.
That's an amazing mission to be on. And I will certainly help do my part in it too. So, Rael, to wrap up, I want to say thank you again. This has been delightful. For those of you who have been watching, if you'd enjoyed it, if you have enjoyed the interview, please like, share, comment. If you have questions for Rael, please put them in the comments below. We'll also be putting a link to where you can get in touch with him and his website and his offerings. And also stay tuned because we'll be doing two other interviews with Rael again. We're going to be taking a deeper dive into Amanita Muscaria and also looking at another very interesting topic around spiritual warfare. So stay tuned for those and looking forward to it.